All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our fourth annual Alumni Admission Symposium, which has now been rebranded to this Becoming a Terp Legacy series. This event is the first session of the series, and we are excited to have you all here tonight. My name is Jessica Lee, and I'm the program manager for student engagement at your Alumni Association. In my role, I aim to identify, cultivate, and train student and alumni ambassadors for the university. The Alumni Association helps you to connect and stay involved with the Terp community and campus. We help alumni advance personally and professionally while improving the success of fellow Terps. We also help preserve Maryland tradition to boost your Terp pride and work to elevate the value of your degree, the reputation of your alma mater, and the greater good. The university has over 40,000 students, nearly 30,000 of which are undergraduates. These undergraduate students study in 12 academic colleges representing over 90 different majors, have internships in Washington, D.C., Annapolis, and Baltimore and beyond, and get involved across campus in the over 800 student clubs and organizations we have to offer. We at the Alumni Association have our very own student ambassador program called the Student Alumni Leadership Council, otherwise known as SALC. This group inspires a sense of community between Terps across generations while instilling lifelong loyalty to our alma mater. So tonight we will be hearing from Maggie Doran, who's also an alumna, class of 2016, who is our senior coordinator with the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. We hope you will leave today's program with an understanding of what to do in middle school/high school to be a competitive applicant, how to apply to the University of Maryland using the coalition application or common application, and the many other exciting opportunities that the university has to offer. So before we begin tonight's presentation, I wanted to reiterate a couple housekeeping items. Please feel free to pose any questions that you may have in the Q&A using the Q&A feature in Zoom. And following Maggie's presentation, we'll be sure to answer any questions from the Q&A portion of the chat. Thank you again for being here. And without further ado, let's begin by welcoming Senior Coordinator of Admissions, Maggie Doran.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen while we jump in and get started. I'm a little sad I can't see you all in person tonight, but hopefully next year we'll be back. But it is such a pleasure to join you all virtually this evening. I want to thank you again for coming out and joining us. I know this is quite the busy time of year. There's a lot going on, so I do really appreciate you coming out. As Jessica mentioned, we are going to be having plenty of time for question and answer at the end of the presentation. So I encourage you, as I'm presenting, any questions about Maryland today? I know many of us are probably very knowledgeable about Maryland in the audience, about our admission process, anything you can think of. I want to be a resource for you, whether you're a student, a parent, a proud Terp alum, or a combination of all three. We are going to do questions at the end. So if you're wondering why I'm not getting to it just yet, hold tight, we'll be there. Again, my name is Maggie. I went to the University of Maryland, as did my younger sister. So we are a double Terp family. I'm originally from the great state of New Jersey. I'm hoping and probably guessing we do have some fellow Terp New Jersey alum out there in the virtual audience as well. I can talk a little bit fast. I'll try to take it kind of slow, but I'm really excited to share with you all a little bit about what the university has been up to and about our admissions process. I'm going to kick things off first by talking a little bit about some numbers, but I'm going to tell you all the truth. I prefer to talk a little bit about the Maryland story, right? Of course, distinctions are something as alumni and family of alum we can brag about and be proud of, but really I like to focus again on the Maryland story. But let's talk a little about some of the numbers that make up the University of Maryland. As Jessica mentioned earlier, right now we are about 30,000 undergraduate students. That's a whole lot. It's actually grown since I graduated about 5 years ago, and that's an exciting time for our campus. Each fall, we welcome a freshman class of about 4,600 students to campus, and about a transfer class, pardon me, of about 1,000 students as well. Some other distinctions and numbers I want to mention here. You'll see on the left-hand side of your screen, according to Kiplinger's Personal Finance, we are a top 10 school for best value among public colleges. And that is for both in and out-of-state students. The reason I like to hit that distinction and why I'm pretty proud of it is I think it goes to show at the University of Maryland, not only are students getting a fantastic education, but you're getting the best value on your tuition dollar as well. So the best bang for your buck. We were recently last summer ranked the #1 college in the United States, according to Campus Pride, for LGBTQ plus students. And speaking a little about the diversity of our campus, like I mentioned, we're about 30,000 undergraduate students, and Maryland really is a microcosm of the world. Our diversity really runs through every aspect of the word. We have students from all 50 states, every single county in Maryland, 123 different countries. 44% of our students self-identify as a student of color. We have religious diversity, political ideology diversity, and that really is what makes the Maryland education so fantastic. Now, for many of you in the virtual audience, I'm guessing you're probably at Maryland back when we were part of the ACC Athletic and Academic Conference. When I was a student at Maryland, that changed a little bit as we shifted over to the Big Ten. So for some young alum who might be out there, that probably was always your Maryland reality, but relatively different change. And we have about 19 different Division I NCAA teams on our campus, as well plenty of club organizations as well. Now, in terms of talking about student life, academic life, a big theme you're going to hear me mention tonight, and probably if you return to campus for a game or come on an official campus tour when we are reopened, is that though Maryland is so big, there are so many different ways to break it down into a smaller community across campus. And I'm sure for our parents, guardians, grandparents, friends, cousins out there who are telling their, children, family, friends, nieces, nephews, grandchildren about Maryland, you can absolutely back me up on that. Again, 30,000 undergraduate students, but Maryland starts to feel like such a small and close knit family very quickly into your educational experience. Now, a couple of things that make up our student life and our student body. Of course, I have to talk about all of our student organizations. I won't list all of them, that's quite a lot, but as you can see, likely from the screen in front of you, we have over 800 student organizations. So there is a way to get involved for every single student. 800 is still a pretty big number. I promise you, we make it really easy to find out what you're interested in becoming a part of. Every fall, we have something called the First Look Fair, where all of our clubs, organizations are out there looking to recruit future students. It's not uncommon for a new freshman to sign up for 20 different email listservs, attend 5 or 10 first meetings, and then start to figure out from there what it is that I'm interested in. And within these 800 student organizations, again, you're going to find everything under the sun. Whether it's something you were involved in high school, maybe you played field hockey and you're not ready to give that up, even though you're not going to be a Division I athlete, we have a club team for that. Maybe you're looking to play some casual intramural sports, perhaps soccer with some friends that you meet in your residence hall, Student Government Association, Young Entrepreneur Society. There are so many ways to get involved to not only find out and really exercise what your passions are, but also to find leadership positions, to make connections, and to start building up your resume for future internships and jobs. There's also some more social and fun organizations. One of my favorite ones to talk about is the Chillin' and Grillin' Club, where they get together and you can probably guess, hang out and grill together on the weekends. Probably worth noting they have a vegan and vegetarian division as well. You probably won't be talking about the Chillin' and Grillin' Club when you're sitting in a job interview senior year, but it's a great way to jump in, get involved, and make some friends on campus. As I mentioned, we are Division I, a part of the Big Ten Athletic and Academic Conference, and you really find that school pride everywhere off and on the field. I have to guess a lot of you in the audience are probably feel that school pride, and that's why you're at an event like this tonight, and why you're so involved with our wonderful Alumni Association. So certainly you feel that school pride when you're attending a football, a soccer, a softball, a basketball game, but also, at our robotics organizations when they are competing nationwide, at Solar Decathlon, when you're walking around campus and seeing everyone in their very vibrant and bold Maryland colors. I know when I first got to campus, I thought red, black, white, and yellow was an interesting combination. But now 5, 6, well, I guess 9, 10 years later, it just feels second nature to me. And our students are so proud of our campus and being Terps. College Park itself has changed so much, even in the 5 years that I've graduated, and it's continued to change a lot. We have plenty of new restaurants, a brand new hotel and spa, different high-rise apartments for students, and most notably, in my opinion, is what we call the Discovery District, where there's fantastic startup organizations and corporations, and they're always looking to hire our students. I'm going to be focusing a little bit more about current campus life instead of College Park, but I do want to encourage everyone to go out at some point this evening or this week and check out greatercollegepark.umd.edu to get an idea of what's going on and what's to come in the College Park area. Now, in terms of location, since all of our webinar guests tonight have some connection to Maryland, you probably know where we are. We are located in College Park, Maryland, in the great state of Maryland, and we are the flagship institution of the state. We are within commuting distance of three major airports, so it makes it very easy for our students from further out of state or our international students to get home. Or if you are someone who's thinking about studying abroad, whether it's for a full year or for a semester, perhaps for a quick abroad program over spring or winter break, it is very easy to get around. And I can tell you, as a previous out of state student, I have been home every which way. We are also very close to an Amtrak station, to a MARC commuter rail. And as many of you probably know, we have our own stop on the DC Metro line. Now, of course, when talking about location, I have to talk about Washington, D.C. And I'm guessing that a lot of folks who are joining us tonight were probably drawn to the University of Maryland because of our location. I think when thinking about where you want to attend for the next 4 years of your college education, location is such an important thing to consider. I love the University of Maryland for a lot of reasons. Of course, I love the green grass, the gorgeous brick buildings, the fabulous academics. But growing up about 30 minutes outside of a major city, being near a city was so, so important to me. And that's what brought me to the University of Maryland. We are about 20 minutes away from Washington, D.C. Once you hit the Green Line, which the University of Maryland has its own stop on, we're roughly 25 minutes into the heart of DC. And it is so easy for our students, staff, and faculty to get in and around the city. And this is great for a lot of reasons. A, being so close to DC means we attract some of the most fantastic faculty and staff in the world. A lot of our professors are still working in the industry. You might be sitting in your criminology and criminal justice class and learning from someone who still works for the FBI. And that can't just happen anywhere. It's also great for our professors to take advantage of the location. I know when I was a student, one day in my journalism class, instead of going into lecture like we normally do, we headed into the museum to check out some new exhibits. Unfortunately, the museum is no longer around in DC, but our professors are taking advantage of places like the Phillips Gallery, the Smithsonian Museums, new and interesting pop-ups that are around for the short term. And DC is a fun city. If you are interested in great food, there are some of the top restaurants in the nation in DC. Restaurant Week makes it very affordable for a college student to try out some of these gourmet options. For students who are thinking about internships and jobs, it makes it so easy to still be a full-time student and go intern on DC. I know students, since they have the ability to create their own course schedules, who maybe take their classes Tuesday, Thursday, one semester, and go into DC Monday, Wednesday, Friday to intern. Perhaps you take your classes in the morning one semester and you intern on Capitol Hill in the afternoon. It is so wonderful that we have our close proximity to DC, and that means our students are getting this real world hands-on experience, the ability to get fantastic internships, not just during the summer or winter break, but also during the semester as well. If you're a sports fan, DC is also a great town for that as well. When the Terps aren't playing on campus, you can head in and watch the Caps play hockey, the Nationals play baseball. And certainly, if you are from another state and you have your own home team you want to root for, odds are they'll be coming to DC and you can catch them there. So, really, best of both worlds. If you are looking for the state school traditional campus feel, you get that at the University of Maryland, but you have all the resources and tools that a city school can offer you right in your back pocket. All right, now, of course, we have to talk about academics when we are talking about prospective students applying to the University of Maryland and thinking about if it's going to be a good fit for them. Now, I did mention earlier that Maryland is big, right? But we break down into some smaller communities across campus. And one of the ways that this happens is through your school and college on campus. So while we're all University of Maryland students, you might also be a student in the Philip Merrill College of Journalism or in the College of Information Studies. So within your school and college, you get that closer niche feel, getting to know professors, advisors, your classmates, but you get all the resources, diversity, support, and opportunity that a large institution can offer you. Within these 12 different schools and colleges you see in front of your screen, we offer a little over 90 majors for students to choose from. So really the world is your oyster at the University of Maryland. If you are a student who is undecided in what they would like to study, you would enter as what we call a Letters and Sciences student. That's the last thing I've listed here. Now, Letters and Sciences isn't a program you would graduate with, but instead it's our undeclared, undecided advising track. So you're still absolutely going to have an academic advisor. You're still on track to graduate on time. I know parents and guardians always like to hear that, but you have the opportunity to explore different options as you're completing what we call our general education requirements. And these are courses that all students have to take, but maybe while you're testing out or taking your humanities requirement, you're testing out how you like journalism or how you like public policy. Perhaps for your science requirement, you take a computer science class or a geology class, a biology class, a geographic information science course. As you're completing these requirements, again, you get to see what you're passionate about. Now, if you're a student who knows what they like to study, but you can't decide between two options, that's okay. I always like to talk about our double majors because I think our ability to give students that flexibility is so great because it allows students to customize their education. If you are interested in double majoring or minor or double minoring across different schools and colleges, absolutely you can. So certainly we have students in the School of Business who perhaps are double majoring in accounting and finance, but we also have students who are double majoring in accounting and dance. Two pretty different subject areas. But if you're torn or you're passionate about both, you don't have to tell us why you're interested in. As long as you're interested in it, you can pursue them. And we have plenty of minors that students can pursue as well. You can find a list of all of our majors and minors on the admissions website, which I'll share the link to at the end of the presentation. Now, letters and sciences at the bottom here, as I mentioned, is for students who are undecided, but that's also where we're going to place students who are not admitted to their first choice of major. And that can sound a little bit like a scary sentence. I promise it's not so scary once I start to kind of flesh out exactly what that means. Now, some majors at the University of Maryland that are more popular are what we call limited enrollment programs. Again, that title can sound a little bit scary, but really all that means is because they are popular, we want to be able to ensure that students are able to register for the classes they need to meet with their advisor, not just when it's required, but when they want to. Maybe it's, they just have a quick question, that they're able to take advantage of all the outside of the classroom experiences, maybe something like the Bloomberg terminal available for students in the School of Business. So we just have to limit how many students are enrolled in these programs each year and semester. So that's where we get the phrase limited enrollment program from. I'm going to be referring to that as an LEP for short. So that's what I'm saying there. Now, when you're applying to the University of Maryland, and this is a really important thing I want you to listen up for, whether it's as a freshman or a transfer student, we are reviewing your application major blind. So whether you want whatever ends up being the most popular major, the least popular major, an LEP, a non-LEP, won't have an impact on your admission decision. And I'll talk a little bit about the admissions process in a few slides from here. So we first decide as an admission committee if we're going to be offering a student admission to the University of Maryland. If the answer is yes, and their first choice of major is one of these limited enrollment programs, there may be an additional review of their application, whether they're a freshman or a transfer applicant. So what that means for some freshmen and transfer students is they may be admitted to the University of Maryland. Wonderful, yay, we love that. And to their first choice of major, pretty clear pathway there. But it's possible you might be admitted and not to your first choice of major. And that can sound a little bit scary, but let me talk to you a little bit what happens when a student isn't admitted to their first choice of major. For all of these programs here, as if you're applying as a transfer student or as what we call an internal transfer student, so someone at Maryland looking to transfer majors, for all of them except for business, talk about that in just a second, the review for internal transfer students is non-competitive. So that means if you meet a series of requirements, typically about 3 courses with a minimum grade and GPA, and apply on time, there's not a competitive review. If you check those boxes, boom, you can be a part of that major. So to give you an example, if you are admitted to Maryland and your first choice is computer science as a freshman and you are enrolled, but you didn't get into computer science, you just have to take 3 computer science requirements. It's 2 programming classes and a calc. As long as you get a C- and a 2.7 overall in those courses and overall GPA, boom, you can be in that major. I'm going to tell you the truth. This is a little too nuanced for you to worry about right now. Really, what I want you to take away from this is it's okay if you're not admitted to your first choice of major. There's a very clear pathway to it there. All of these, again, except for business, have a non-competitive review for students at the university looking to transfer majors. Business is the one exception where they still have a competitive review for transfer students at the University of Maryland, so looking to transfer majors. Certainly not to suggest students aren't going to get into the business school, but just like the college admission process, they're going to be looking holistically at your application. Again, what I want you to take away right now as a current high school student getting ready to apply down the line is that because we are major blind, I want you to put down whatever your true first choice of major is. And certainly I can answer questions about LEPs at the end, or if you want to shoot me an email later on. All right, now it is the president's promise at the University of Maryland that every student will have an outside of the classroom special experience. And this happens in a couple of different ways. One of which is being research. Now, I know when I was looking at colleges, I was thinking about maybe a government degree, maybe English literature. So I thought research didn't really apply to me. But at the University of Maryland and as a public research institution, there are opportunities for all of our students across every major to engage in research. And I find that it really is a part of all of our classroom experiences. So certainly our traditional STEM fields, our chemistries, our biologies, our psychologies, but our art studio, our history majors, everyone has the opportunity to get involved in research. And you also don't have to hit any particular benchmark before you jump in and dive in. If you are a first semester freshman who wants to get involved in research, we're not here to stop you. You certainly are able to do so. There's also plenty of research leadership positions that students are able to take part in, whether it's being a lab manager in a lab on campus, something of that nature, perhaps leading a cohort, serving as a mentor in some of our living and learning programs that are research based, which I'll talk about in just a few moments. And again, all majors can get involved in research. Now, in terms of internships, I touched on this kind of briefly when talking about Washington, D.C., but our close proximity to such a powerful city means our students are not only engaged in internships over the summer, but also during the school year as well. And I certainly don't mean to suggest that you have to have an internship every single semester you're at Maryland. But if you think about it, just one or two throughout the school year or throughout your 4 years at Maryland, and if you are working or interning throughout the summer, you're one or two internships ahead of your competition at other schools, where because of their location or because of their requirements, they're only able to intern or work throughout the summer. There are also plenty of internships on our campus. So sometimes your commute is just as far as, 10 minutes away from your residence hall. Actually, one of my first internships, or second one, I should say, was my sophomore year of Maryland for the admissions office. And it obviously went pretty well for me and for them because I am still working there, I don't know, roughly 9.5 years later. In terms of education abroad, we have abroad programs that are full year, that are fall semester, spring semester, over winter break for about 2 to 3 weeks, over summer break from anywhere between 2 weeks and 6 weeks. And every major does have the opportunity to go abroad if they would like to. You can also go abroad more than once if you're interested in doing so. My younger sister, who also went to the University of Maryland, studied in Hong Kong her sophomore year winter break and Rome her second semester junior year. The abroad office has ample scholarship opportunities as well, and we really want this to be an accessible opportunity for all of our students. Now, in terms of service learning, one thing we have noticed as we read applications as an admissions office each year is just how engaged our students are in their communities, in their schools, in their religious organizations. I want you to have the opportunity to continue that when you get to Maryland. For that reason, we have so many offices that are organizing service learning opportunities, and this might be something more long term. Perhaps you're interested in getting involved in tutoring at a local elementary school once a week for the semester. Maybe you don't have as much time to give that particular semester, and you go and spend a Saturday volunteering at a food bank in Washington, D.C. The kind of commitment can vary, but if you are interested in service learning, Maryland is going to be a great place for you. And we call ourselves a do good institution. The last thing I want to talk about here is living and learning programs. Now, these are special opportunities for incoming freshman students. And I'll talk a little bit more about the application process. But the good news is there's nothing extra you do to be reviewed for these beyond applying to our early action deadline, which I'm probably going to talk about ad nauseum when we get to the admission slides in just a few minutes. Now, again, I've talked a lot about how Maryland is a big school, but breaks down into some smaller communities, and living and learning programs is a great example as well as this. Our two largest living and learning programs are what we call the Honors College and College Park Scholars. And with these and with all of our programs, the title's pretty straight to the point. You would live in the same residence hall or section of a residence hall as students who are also in your living and learning program and learn with them by taking a few classes together for either your first year or years as Maryland as a group or cohort. Within the Honors College, we have programs like our Advanced Cybersecurity program, an Honors Humanities program. Within College Park Scholars, we have a Justice and Legal Thought program, a Art Scholars, an Environmental Science focused program. And the great thing about these programs is you don't have to be a computer science major to be in that advanced cybersecurity program in the Honors College. Certainly, there are some computer science majors in it, but these programs can be a great way to exercise some academic passions that are maybe outside of your major. We also have some smaller living and learning programs like Civicus for students interested in civic engagement, community service learning, and diversity or leadership in diverse societies. Global communities for students interested in international relations and global engagement. FIRE, the first year innovative research experience, and that is beyond STEM research as well as social science research, and Carillon Communities. They have some sub programs that change year to year, but their big idea and mission is getting students to think creatively about some of the world's most pressing and interesting problems. Again, to be reviewed for living and learning programs, our incoming freshmen don't have to do anything extra beyond apply to our early action deadline. All right, I know I've been doing a lot of talking at you. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. Let's jump in and talk a little bit about our admissions process. Again, as a reminder, I see some questions coming in. You can use the Q&A feature at the middle bottom of your screen to ask any questions, and we'll have a Q&A period at the end of the presentation. Everything I'm about to share with you is online, so don't feel like you have to take notes. Just sit back, relax, and hopefully get ready to take in some fabulous information. All right, now when you're applying to the University of Maryland as a freshman student, we have two different applications you're able to utilize, the Common Application and the My Coalition application. If you are someone who is thinking about applying as a transfer student, at this time you're only on the Coalition for our application for transfer students. Both are exclusively online. That's a little quick link to both of them there. And to talk briefly about both application platforms, the Coalition is a little bit newer. It's been around since 2016. We have been on it since 2017. And it has a lot of great features like the virtual locker. Think of it kind of as a Google Drive or Docs for college materials, and great college search features as well. I'm guessing many of you are probably a little bit more familiar with the Common Application since it's been around since I want to say 1974, and there are a little over 90 member institutions on it. This past year was actually the University of Maryland's first year on the Common Application, and we are going to be on it moving forward. We have zero preference on either the Common App or Coalition. Whatever works best for you as a student, we are happy to use. They look very similar on our end when we go to read and review applications. So I always tell students, whatever has the most overlap, that's probably what's going to make it easiest for you. Now, in terms of the application checklist, what do we use when we are reviewing a student for admission to the University of Maryland? The first is a little bit more straightforward. So the application form itself, again, either on the Coalition or the Common Application. Within that, you're going to have some basic demographic information, your name, your date of birthday, where you went to high school. But there also is going to be some great information and sections in there, like your essay. Now, the essay is an opportunity for us to learn more about you as a student and or person. There is no perfect essay. I get asked that every single year. What I tell students is, tell me something I wouldn't know from the rest of your application. So, don't just retell me what's on your activity sheet. Maybe if you want to talk about one specifically and why you're passionate about that's great. Don't just tell me you want to go into nursing. Tell me why. Tell me what's, really sparked that fire. Tell me what your goals are. Something that I wouldn't just get from reading the rest of your application. Again, there's no perfect college essay. It's going to be a little bit different for everyone. The example I use every single year is I probably do read about 10 to 20 essays about baseball, but none of them over these past 5 years have ever been remotely the same. So really, you can take your essay in so many different directions. I promise you, we're excited to read them. They're one of my favorite parts of the application, and it gives us such a great chance to get to know you a little bit better. Within the application itself, we also have a short answer question. I know it sounds like a whole nother essay. I promise you, students, they're pretty short. They're less than a tweet. They're about 140 characters each, typically questions along the lines of, I feel like a leader went blank, or the best thing about last Tuesday was X. And for some reason, these seem to stress out students a little bit more than the essay. So students, since you're here and you're doing the research a little bit earlier, please let me alleviate your fears or anxieties ahead of time. Don't overthink these short answers. They are not an additional essay. They are not an interview. They're just a chance for us to get to know you a little bit better. So really, I always tell students, you read them over, sit on them for a day or two. I think sometimes I'm most creative or unique or, my funniest when I think on things for a day. So maybe you think of the perfect answer while you're brushing your teeth or going for a drive or going for a run. So unlike an essay, I don't recommend you need to rewrite these short answers over and over, but, take a look at them and work on them, if, maybe for a day or so. Outside of the, or pardon me, inside of the application as well, you will also have the opportunity to write or to attach an activities list or resume. And again, that's a great chance for us to get to know what you're passionate about. Maybe it is a club or sport at your school. Maybe you're very involved in a community organization or a religious organization. Perhaps you work. Perhaps you have a special role at home. Maybe you take care of a younger sibling every day after school or a grandparent. Whatever it is that you've been involved in for the last 4 years, tell us all about it. I promise you, we're very, very interested. I read every single word, every single line of these applications. Outside of the application itself, you are going to be able to submit a teacher and counselor letter of recommendation. If you have a third or fourth person in mind, certainly you're welcome to include an additional letter. Maybe it's a stage director of a theater production you've been very involved in. Maybe it's a mentor. Maybe it's a club advisor. Maybe it's an employer. Whoever it is, again, you are welcome to have additional letters. I always just tell students, make sure it's adding something different. I think my record this year was maybe 17 letters of recommendation. And while they all were speaking very lovely about the student, your teachers are busy too. And we can get a really good idea of who you are inside the classroom from just one or maybe two letters of recommendation from teachers. So don't feel like you have to go out and ask every single teacher you've had throughout high school. Probably unsurprisingly, we need a copy of your high school transcripts. If you've attended more than one high school, we do ask if the grades aren't on your most recent one that you have it sent to us as well. And when we get your high school transcripts, really we're looking at the whole story. Very often I'm asked, what's the exact GPA you need to get into the University of Maryland? And unfortunately, I wish I had a quick answer because that would be the magic fairy dust to everyone's worries. We have a holistic review where we're looking at students in their full nature, academic, personal lives, but also GPA is only so telling. It can vary school to school. At some schools, the highest GPA you could achieve if you took every honors class and got straight A's might be a 4.0. At some schools, it might be a 7. It might be 100. Some schools just use narrative and hearts and stars. So when I get a transcript, what I'm looking at is ninth grade. What kinds of classes did you take? Did you take any challenging courses? How did you perform in those? And then again in 10th and 11th grade. Was there an increase in rigor? Were you consistently strong? We're paying attention to things like rigor, to your academic trend, and really getting to know your academic history within your high school. If you are someone who is taking dual enrollment credits, perhaps at a local community college or perhaps through a state institution where you are currently living, if you've already completed those courses, absolutely, please do have those transcripts sent to us as well. Outside of that, we also, in most years, require a standardized test score. But last year and for the next 2 cycles, we are going to be test optional. So what that means is if you sat for the exam, whether the SAT or ACT, and you would like to send it and have it used in your application, absolutely you can do that. If you were unable to sit for the exam, we know it has been crazy trying to get an SAT date for this past, honestly, 2 years. Same thing with the ACT. Or you are unhappy with your score, you don't feel like it's a good reflection of you as a student, you don't have to. So we're optional either way. Typically, what I tell students is sometimes it's helpful to check out our past admitted student profiles on our website, get an idea of the averages that we've seen test score wise for students in years gone by. And if you feel like your scores are an accurate representation of your academic potential, absolutely go ahead and send them to us. The decision whether you go test optional or test, or you don't have your test scores, test optional or test included, is going to follow you through every step of our review. So when we are looking to admit you, when we're looking to review for our LEPs, our limited enrollment program majors, when we're reviewing for things like the honors college. So don't feel like you're going to be punished if you don't send the test scores, or if you do. It's just going to, as you go through the process, they'll be there or they don't, and we'll use them in the context of our 26 different factors, which I'll share with you all a little later this evening. Whew, I know that's a whole lot of talking. It makes it seem like there's a ton of materials that we require. Really, what we're trying to do is get to know you as best we can, and all of these application materials are give us that ability to do so. All right. Now, before I start talking a little bit more and answering your questions, two things I want to touch on. I know there's going to be a fantastic financial aid session later this week, but the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA for short, is due each January 1st for our students for best consideration. If you're someone who is going to be a rising high school senior, so you're going into senior year this coming year, it will be due January of your senior year of high school for your freshman year of college. And for merit-based scholarships, as long as you apply by the early action deadline of November 1st, you're going to be automatically reviewed for all of our merit-based scholarships. Um, I'll actually, but before I talk about deadlines, I want to talk a little bit more about our 26 factors. I know it's so tempting. I wish there was a magic formula to ease everyone's anxieties about the college application process. Hopefully, you can take some relief in knowing it's not just test score and GPA, or if you're test optional, just GPA. We are looking at 26 different factors, or 25 if you're test optional, as an admission committee to decide if we're going to offer student admission. As you're going to know, about a third of these are academic in nature. So things like your grades, things like your progression of performance, things like your rank of class, if that's available, are going to talk a little bit about your academic history. We're also interested in getting to know who you are in and outside of the classroom. And again, I know that probably seemed like a whole lot of materials we were requiring before, but they really are helpful in getting to know how these 26 or 25 factors impact your story. These are not listed in any particular order, nor do they have a specific weight. They can really change and be a sliding scale student to student. So, for example, you might be someone who is very involved in community service and extracurricular activities, and absolutely, we love to see that. But maybe you also, like I mentioned earlier, every day after school have to go home and help take care of a grandparent or a sibling, and understandably wouldn't have time for extracurriculars. Everybody's story, everybody's experience is going to be a little bit different. So, how these 26 factors impact you, your story, and your application is going to be a little bit different student to student. Typically, we are looking for students who are involved, whatever that means. That can be different student to student, and who have done well throughout high school. Most of our students have earned mainly A's and B's in competitive courses. All right, now, of course, we have to talk about the deadline. You're going to notice I only put up the early action deadline. I tell students, parents, guardians, whoever is out there, forget we have a second deadline. Our early action deadline is going to give students priority consideration for admission. I'm about to throw a really big number your way. We take about 90% of our freshman class from the early action deadline. 90, that's a lot. That means when it comes to the regular deadline, there's only about 10% of space left. And what that means is it gets really, really competitive. There are students who, had they applied early action, maybe they would have been invited to our honors college, who are applying regular, who sometimes we're not able to offer admission to. Every year when I talk to high school seniors, they ask me, what can I do to help my application chances? And I'd be straight with you all, by senior year, a lot of the cards are on the table, right? You can't change your grades in the past 3 years. You can't, force a teacher or counselor to write something in a letter of recommendation. Your involvement is kind of set besides senior year. What you can do to help your application chances is apply early action. Again, we take the majority of our freshman class from the early action deadline. Now, often I'm asked, what's the catch? There is none. It's non-binding. So if you're admitted to Maryland, I hope you're excited to become a Terp, but you still have until May 1st, our confirmation deadline, to let us know if you'll be attending. Additionally, if you apply early action, you'll be automatically reviewed for all of our merit-based scholarships. As a federally and state funded institution, unfortunately, we're not able to offer scholarships to international students. So you do need to be a US citizen or permanent resident. But again, no extra essay. Hopefully, our seniors in the Zoom are relieved to hear that, because I know they have a lot of essays coming up this year. You just have to apply early action. You're also going to hear back a little bit earlier. So our early action students will be notified by their decision by February 1st. I'll give you guys some inside information. Typically, it's a little bit earlier than Feb 1. In the 8 odd years I've been a part of the process in some way or another, I've never really seen it earlier than 2, 3 days. Usually it's like 1, 2 days ahead of time, but by February 1st for the latest. So what that means as a senior is if you're admitted by February 1, you have until May 1st to come visit campus, to talk to current students, to learn a little bit more about your future major. And so when it comes to May 1, you are confident, you are comfortable, you are so sure you want to become a Terp. If you wait until the regular decision, again, no special benefits or priority consideration, and you have a little bit less time to decide because these decisions are released by April 1. So that might mean you only have about a month to decide, and it's a lot. I think a big reason I was drawn to my profession working in college admissions is because I was really stressed out my senior year. I'll tell you the truth. I was constantly driving myself crazy with this big decision, and you want as much time to make this decision as possible. So I know I can sound harsh when I tell students, forget early a regular decision, forget the date even exists, but really I want to give you that competitive edge. I want you to have time to decide, time to visit campus, time to talk to students, and applying early action is going to help you along the lines there. All right, I promise I'm wrapping it up and getting to questions too. I have so much to say, and it never feels like I have enough time to say it, no matter how much time I have. In terms of completing the application, making sure your application is just as important as meeting the deadline. So it is on our students to be responsible and check their checklist to make sure their teacher letter recommendation is here and that they requested their transcript to be sent to the University of Maryland and not to the University of Michigan by accident. I know they're close in the alphabet, it's easy to do. We do feel that a Maryland ready student is a student who's going to be able to make sure their checklist is complete. We don't start reviewing applications any earlier than the deadline, but often what I tell students is give yourself your own personal or internal deadline. If you get your application in about a week ahead of time, it gives you time to have mistakes, right? Maybe you did accidentally request for your test scores to go to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, another state school, but completely separate from us. If you realize that a week ahead of time, there's time to fix that mistake. If you realize that on November 1st, November 2nd, November 3rd, sure, you can go ahead and re-request it, but it's possible that maybe you're not going to be a part of early action. And maybe that means you're part of that more competitive review and unfortunately not admitted. So again, I feel like I can sound kind of harsh when I really, really push students to be careful about this deadline, to double, triple check their checklist. But it's because I want what's best for students and I want them to be calm, cool, collected. You want to have a good Halloween. You don't want to be working on your Maryland application the night before November 1st. Make sure you are checking your email. I know I was there. You are probably getting 5,000 emails a day from colleges. It's a lot, but make sure you are checking because sometimes that's how we reach out about a missing document. Maybe that's where we're sending our reminders to students. It's where we're sending invitations to special events. So check your email. And probably the hardest thing to do, I know sometimes senior year, is to relax. A big piece of advice I like to give rising seniors and certainly juniors and underclassmen and their guardians is to start early. When you start early, there's time to say, I can't do it. I remember sitting at the kitchen table and looking at my dad and saying, I just can't talk about college applications tonight. I was there not so long ago, not so recently, and I remember what it was like to be a senior. Everybody's asking you where you're going next year, and you're like, it's August 5th. The applications haven't even opened yet. But if you start early, there's room to say, I can't do this tonight. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to play Fortnite, whatever it is you need to do to take care of yourself. But if you start the application 3 days before it's due, there's less time to make space for you to take care of yourself. Last piece of advice in terms of relaxing, I wish I had thought about this back when I was a student, is to maybe make a time once a week or a meeting where you and your guardian talk about the college application process. For me, I felt like it was all me and my dad were talking about every single day for like 3 months straight. But if you say Sunday afternoons, we go and we get a cup of coffee, we get coffee flavored ice cream, whatever it is. And that's what we talk about the process. Where am I at in my essay? What schools am I applying to? Where have I already heard back from? It helps. It kind of compartmentalizes this big process. I know it's hard to do, but relax. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, I promise. All right, very briefly, just quickly, our types of admissions decisions. The first is fairly obvious. If you get your admissions decision and you apply to the fall, you're admitted to the fall, great, you're going to join us then. If we're not able to offer a student admission, I know that can be really tough news, but the thing I tell every student, whether it's Maryland or another school, is no now is not no forever. We have so many pathways to the University of Maryland, whether it is after finishing an associate's degree at a community college, maybe it's after a year at another institution. If you are not offered admission to the University of Maryland, keep talking to us. We want to talk to you about the transfer pathways, about how to get to the University of Maryland, the tools that are going to make your transfer experience successful. And if we're your top choice, we still want to remain that throughout your transfer process. Somewhat unique to the University of Maryland is every year when we review students, we have the same problem. We have more students that we think are going to be a good fit and we want to offer admission to than we have space for in the fall. In the spring, we have students who graduate, who go abroad, who perhaps transfer out, unfortunately, so we have more space. So we're able to offer additional students admission to the spring semester. Now, what that means is certainly you could join us in the spring. Let's say you applied to fall 2021, you're offered admission to spring 2022. But we also have a special program called Freshman Connection. This is an opportunity for students to still start their first semester, fall of, after their senior year of high school. The only big difference is that your classes are going to be in off-peak hours. So after 3 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and typically anytime Friday. Maryland professors, Maryland classes, just a different time of day. You can still live on campus, be involved with campus. Really, your experience is going to be pretty much the same as a fall admitted student if you're a part of Freshman Connection. The only real difference is the time of day you're taking classes for just one semester. All right. I know I've done so much talking at you guys for this past, 48 minutes. I'm so happy and excited to answer some of your questions. I'm going to stop screen sharing, but at the end of the presentation, I will go ahead and put my contact information in here as well. So if you have any questions that you think of, tomorrow or in August of your senior year, don't be afraid to ask them. But let's dive in and talk about some questions.
Let me unmute myself. Great. Thank you so much, Maggie, for that very informative presentation. So we do have some questions in the chat, and there were some that I have already kind of fielded and answered. So for folks that may have asked some questions, they may have been answered via the chat. But the first question that we have, so do you have any information on the percentage of in-state versus out-of-state students?
I absolutely do. So we are about 70% in-state, 30% out-of-state. Now, as a Maryland institution, we do have to admit about 70% of our incoming class from the state of Maryland. That being said, we're really lucky, and I'll tell you why. Whether you are joining us virtually tonight from the state of Maryland, from another state, maybe internationally, we are equally competitive for in and out-of-state students. I think it comes down to like 0.001 each year. That has been the case for many, many years, as long as I've been a part of the process and well before my time. So you are not at a disadvantage if you are from Maryland or you're from out of state. I know when I'm recruiting, when I'm in state, I hear that we're only admitting out of state students. When I'm out of state, I hear we're only admitting in state students. I promise you that's not the case. And it really, though you will meet plenty of Maryland students, you're going to find someone from, across the United States in all of your classes. But if you're from Maryland, you probably know a couple folks too.
Great, thank you. Next question that we have, kind of related. So there was one question that came up earlier where someone asked if you could double major in a major that is an LEP and another that is not. And so the short answer to that is yes, it is definitely possible. But another kind of major related question. So are there specific majors that are more competitive for admissions?
Yeah, great question. So, as we kind of touched on earlier, some of our majors, which we call limited enrollment programs, will have a competitive review for freshmen. So, not every student who is admitted to Maryland is necessarily going to be admitted directly to that major. And for incoming freshmen, that is going to include computer science, immersive media and design, which is one of our newest majors, chemistry, biochemistry, biochem, neuroscience, but beep, anything in engineering, anything in the School of Business. I believe I hit them all there. So with that, it means that if you're admitted to Maryland and not directly admitted to that major, I know that can sound so scary. I promise you there's a very clear pathway to your major here after you finish a handful of requirements. But again, it won't be the reason a student isn't admitted to Maryland. So whatever your true first choice is, put it down. Don't put down whatever you think is going to be the least popular major next year because it's not going to help or hurt your application.
Great. The next questions are related to kind of legacy status. So do you consider legacy status? And then we also had another question about, does it help an application if an older sibling currently attends?
Great question. Now, I always joke when we do this presentation in person, I'm like, I'm scared I'm about to get booed off stage. I have the opportunity to kind of deliver some not bad news, but just to let you know, we do not actually consider legacy or alumni status in our review. Whether a parent, grandparent, sibling went or is currently going to Maryland isn't something that we consider. You are, within probably the same with all college applications, you'll be able to input where your parents and siblings attended or are attending college. But it's not something that we use in our review. So students, when you're admitted to Maryland, you can be very proud that it's completely on your own merit.
Great. Next, several questions are related to living learning programs. So the first one, if you're interested in a specific program such as ACEs, is there any way in the application process to express your interest in that program? What are the selection criteria for those special programs? And then just another related question, if early action is required for all of your living learning programs.
Great questions. Perfect. Yeah. So I'll answer the second one first. It's a little bit quicker. So, yes, in order to be reviewed for a living and learning program, you do need to apply and complete your application for the early action deadline. And when you get your admission decision, you'll actually know A, if you've been admitted, B, what major you've been admitted to, and C, if you've been offered a spot in one of our living and learning programs. They use the same 26 factors that we do. So things like your academic performance, all the other factors that I listed, and I'll share a link to in just a moment as well for their review. But often they'll take, sometimes a special lens. So something like Civicus, the program that focuses a lot on community service learning. Of course, understandably, they're going to be looking a lot at your community service background, your leadership experience. With things like our Honors College and College Park Scholars, they were reviewed by a committee as well as are our smaller living and learning programs. The interesting thing about something like ACEs is students actually aren't invited specifically to one of those programs. They would be invited to the honors college as a whole. And then at that point, you'd be able to preference your top choices within the honors college. So if it is ACEs, you could list that first. I know Jessica has some experience with Gemstone. She worked with them for many, many years. You could list Gemstone, one of the other honors programs. And then you'd figure out from there what you're a part of. So you certainly could mention in the application, there's an additional information section, kind of a catch-all for where nothing else fits. And if you want to directly say, I'm really interested in global communities, or I'm really interested in the honors college, you absolutely can. I can't promise you it's going to mean that you're in it, but it's not going to hurt certainly at all. You absolutely can include that.
And then a couple questions for around like SAT and test scores. So one, will submitting SAT or ACT scores give a better chance of being accepted? And then what is the average SAT range / score for the honors college?
Yeah. So in terms of SAT and ACT and being test optional, right? This is new for us. So this past year, students who applied to fall 2021 as seniors in high school, that was our first year being test optional, and this coming year will be our second and third year. But a big part of our decision to go to test optional was to never harm students. So if you go test optional or you send your test scores, it's not going to put you at a disadvantage. So if I'm looking at two applications and one didn't send test scores, I'm not favoring the one that did instead. I think it should be a very individual decision for students if they A, were able to sit for test scores, and B, if they want to send them. I think it's probably helpful to take a look at some of our past profiles for test scores. We're only about a month out from our May 1 confirmation deadline, but you can find the year before's profile on our website. And the second part of that question about the honors college, unfortunately, I don't have specifics on the honors college admission ranges for test scores. What I can tell you is typically students invited to our honors college are going to be somewhere in our top 12 to 15% of our incoming class. So to be placed in the honors college is relatively competitive. A lot of students will have straight A's in the most competitive classes, if not close to it. It doesn't mean a B or even a C is going to totally take you out of the running, but it's competitive. But again, applying early action will review you for it. And same 26 factors that we're looking at, the honors college is going to consider as well.
Great. Next question, are there any UMD specific questions on the applications? Do you have your own essay and short answer questions, or is it part of the standardized application?
That is a great question. Thank you so much for asking that, Gretchen. So the essays that we use are actually going to be the same. Let's say you use the Common App or the Coalition. They're going to be the same on every single other Common App or Coalition application that you use. Both have about 4 or 5 preset questions that you can choose from and to create your own essay option. I'll tell you right now, I have no preference in the whole wide world. If you thought of the perfect essay question and you want to write about it, maybe you wrote a great essay in high school about yourself and you think it works, that's perfectly fine. The short answers actually are specific to the University of Maryland. So you might have some similar questions perhaps that when you're applying to another college, but they're pretty unique to Maryland. And they're just about 5 of them. Those ones are a little bit quicker than an essay.
Great. The next question that we have, do undergraduate transfer applicants for business majors have a greater level of scrutiny?
Great question. Yeah. So, big competitive review for both freshmen and for transfer students. For incoming freshmen, same 26 factors, because not every high school offers the same courses. There's no specific requirements, but they take a business lens to the review, if you will. So looking at things like leadership, perhaps if you are in pre-calc or calc, because that's often a requirement for all of our business majors, that'll be looked at. For transfer students, so whether you're at the University of Maryland looking to transfer majors or transferring from another institution, there's actually a set of requirements students have to complete in order to be reviewed for the business school. And that's a couple of courses in a specific GPA. And then if you've met those, then you'd be reviewed by a committee of staff from the business school and from the admissions office, if that makes sense.
All right, next question. Do you have an admissions contact for homeschooled student applicants?
Great question. We don't have one specifically right now, but anyone in our office is happy to answer questions. To tell you the truth, your process is going to look pretty similar to any other student. We don't have an additional requirement for students who are homeschooled. Beyond that, sometimes maybe your transcript might look a little bit different. That's okay. But if you have questions about, how your transcript is sent, or if you're a student who, while being homeschooled, took college classes, we're absolutely happy to answer them. You can always shoot us an email, and anyone in our office is happy to help.
Great. And ooh, this one's a fun question. If it's okay to ask, what was Maggie's major at the University of Maryland?
It is absolutely okay to ask. I was a double major, so I came in as an English literature major, and then actually in my internship working for the admissions office, discovered that I might be interested in communication. So I double majored in communication and English. And if you want some double fun facts about my family who went to Maryland, my younger sister was a double major in the business school, studying supply chain management and finance. So it goes to show it's you can double major if you're interested in it.
Great. So another question from Mike. So the deadline for early action is November 1st, but on what date are applications first accepted for the fall semester?
Great question. Great question. So we will release them by February 1st. We release them all at once, or at least relatively all at once, over the course of a couple of minutes. So we don't release our decision rolling. And I know some of our peers release a little bit earlier. Every year I get the phone call, well, I already heard back from Penn State. I already heard back from Michigan, already heard back from Purdue or Rutgers, but by February 1st.
Right. And then these last kind of 3 questions are all kind of related to honors and living learning programs. So the first one, are you invited to apply to the Honors College, or is everyone considered automatically? So that's the first one. If I apply to the Honors College and do not get in, will that affect the final admissions decision? We'll just start with those two, and then I'll read the last one.
Perfect. Yeah. So you don't have to apply separately for the Honors College. You just have to complete your application for the early action deadline. Again, that's why I think sometimes I can sound a little aggressive, but I'm pushing students, check that checklist, make sure everything is in for early action. So everyone who applies is reviewed for the Honors College. So you would never be penalized by being interested in it or anything like that. And when you get your admission decision by February 1st, you would know if you've been offered a spot in the Honors College. Um, I think I covered both of them.
Yeah, I think you did. So there was also a kind of related question. How does being a national merit semifinalist affect admission to honors and scholars?
A great question. Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit more generally about the application first. Just like any award or prestigious honor that a student is given, you're able to include that in the application itself. So it would be used when the admission committee sits down to talk about if we're going to admit a student. And certainly when the Honors College or College Park Scholars or any of the other living and learning programs are reviewing students, they're looking at every application material as well. So if it's in the application, certainly that's something to consider. And again, same 26 factor. So it's not just grades with honors. I know I mentioned it was competitive, but they're looking at everything in your application folder.
Great. And then we have one more question for the evening. So actually two questions, which are actually very similar.
They're
So
matching, yeah.
what is the first date you can submit for early action? So I'm assuming that is asking when the application opens for the fall semester.
Perfect. I have to say, everyone out there in the Zoom audience, that's my favorite kind of question because I love eager beavers who are ahead of the game. So typically the application opens in early to mid August. It opened last year on my birthday, August 7th. So very exciting, perfect birthday gift, exactly what I wanted. So usually early to mid August. The Common Application Coalition typically open within just a few days of each other. And once they're open, our essays are online, and you truthfully are usually online a few days ahead of that as well. So if you're looking to get started before the craziness of senior year of high school kicks in, absolutely, you have the majority of August to work on it.
Great. And I think those are all the questions that we had. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up tonight's event. But thank you so much, Maggie. This concludes tonight's event. You had a fabulous presentation for us. And so hopefully all of our attendees, you all learned something about the admissions process at the University of Maryland and what it means to apply. And so thank you all so much for attending. As a friendly reminder, we have 3 other events in our Becoming a Terp Legacy series, which are spread across the rest of the month, featuring the Office of Financial Aid, all of our academic, or a lot of our academic colleges, as well as a student and family panel. So please note that you will have to register for each session separately if you haven't done so already. And so to learn more about each session and to register, you can visit our website, and I'll drop the link in the chat as well. But we hope to see you soon at a future Becoming a Terp Legacy event, and go Terps. Thank you,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone. Go Terps.